internally I was a mess, especially when I fainted. Like I knew something. There were times where I thought I might actually die from that experience, and I had never felt that before. And it's traumatizing for sure. That was actually a traumatizing, especially being in the hospital, you feel useless. And I'm still thinking about work. Like, am I going to get fired? I'm thinking about relationships with girls. Like, how am I going to be able to date? And I've got IVs in me. I'm like, am I going to be sick for the rest of my life? Anyone who's dealt with chronic illness can relate to those feelings because it's scary. It's a complete identity change. And I think anytime as humans delving into the unknown, it's scary. But through these experiences where you overcome adversity, overcome fears, overcome your suffering, that is where the good stuff comes from.
David Zimmerman, welcome to Fear Unzipped. I've been so excited to have you here. I have known you for a very, very, very long time. We've had many, many conversations over the years. I find you incredibly inspiring, and we've had some deep, deep combos. I want you to share your story with the listeners because I think many are going to relate on so many levels. But first of all, I want to share this quote that you say. We need to share our stories to not only heal ourselves, but to help others around us. And yours is a healing journey. And you've sort of rebranded yourself physically, literally, and metaphorically. So before we start, I would like to do what you and I do every day. We take a shot of Zimms Organics olive oil with this high polyphenol, which I understand is really, really good for you. I learned through you. So let's take our shot together. And here's to good health, as
Well, I guess
Grandpa would say, my grandfather would say, or my father would say.
I need a
Okay.
small one because I already had one today. But
Okay. To good health. Clink, clink. Mm, I really love that. I love putting fresh lemon in it too. Okay, the other thing that I
part of
might
the time.
share. Yeah, it's really good. The other thing I might share with the listeners is that you are my son.
Surprise. I'm
Surprise.
finding out for the first time also.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we'll work through that, okay? Anyway, David, I would love for you to share with the listeners and viewers your story. I really want to start young, when you were young, and what it was like for you as a child growing up, and then what happened through the years to get you where you are today. And I imagine you never would have thought that you would be doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, that's a ultimate throwback. Thank you for the intro, Mom. Nice mug. I'm very proud of you as well. You look fantastic. And okay, so as a kid, a youngin, I was pretty shy. I cried a lot. I feel like I was very sensitive and felt everything around me, different energies, people, but I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling. And so I would get overwhelmed and anxious very easily. And I know we've talked about this because you had a similar upbringing as well, where you also had to overcome a lot of anxieties and fears. Um, Dad and Rachel helped push me into sports, team sports. I mean, I had my bar mitzvah at a young age, or at 13, the normal age. But I think being pushed in to do that, it was something I really didn't like doing, going to the classes and being in a group setting, being vulnerable like that, singing in front of people. But I know it was a very good thing for me as a part of my personal growth at a young age. And I felt like that was a big milestone as it is for a lot of young kids who celebrate that. And then getting into sports, athletics, I was actually really good at football when I was younger in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I think I played, and then I broke my arm really bad, and then I just decided I didn't wanna play football anymore, and then got into lacrosse, and I was always on everything on a board, snowboarding, uh, skateboarding, got into surfing 16, 17 years old. I mean, Oregon's the best because you're where we grew up or where I grew up, about hour and a half from the mountains, hour and a half from the beach, and you guys gave me all amazing opportunities to be able to go do those things, and dad even came up snowboarding with me one time, which I know he did not wanna do, but it was hilarious, but it was very nice that he did that for me, and he would always drive me and my friends up there, and we even had a snowboard team. So I think all those things, it took some time to, like, find my people, um, but when I did, I felt very comfortable in my skin and just gained more confidence getting older, learning about who I am and creativity. I've always been, like, an artist at heart. I remember always drawing, like cartoon figures, and I really enjoyed creative writing. And you and Rachel are also really good writers too. I think we all share that. And then I went up to college. That's where I feel like I really found myself as a person. I could really just kind of define who I was and not have to hide or anything. And I made really good friends in college, and we had so much fun. I got good grades and learned a lot about just school and life and socializing and the systems in place. And I was in Colorado, so snowboarding a lot. That's been a big constant in my life is snowboarding. And then after school, lived in Vail for a year, which was one of the best years of my life. Terrible ski season that year, but super fun. Went up with a couple friends from college, and it was my first food and beverage gig, actually. So I think it's really important for everyone to experience working in F&B, food and beverage, at some point in their life, whether it's at a restaurant, fast food, bartending, because you start to understand people a little bit better. You learn a lot about yourself, how to talk to people, and how to upsell things, and just being of service to someone else, I think, is really important. And then you also learn how not to treat people because you always have the experiences of, just some jerk that's coming through having a bad day, and he takes it out on the server or the people behind the house. And it's just this beautiful system in a good restaurant where it's flowing and it's fun and it's silly, and you just it's just a really good time. And so I was doing that, and I also scanned tickets on the mountain, so I got my free season pass. And I gave myself a year to do that, and then I wanted to get into the real world after that. And one of my best friends had moved to San Francisco, and I decided on a whim to go out there and try to find a job in tech. And it was a very humbling experience. I was crashing on his couch definitely overstayed my welcome. But I had other good friends that let me go up to Napa and stay with their parents. And it was a fun time, but a really difficult time, and just kind of a reality check of the world. And it was also I graduated in 2011, so I was out in the job market in 2012, which was a notoriously really difficult job market for kids getting into the real world. So I had a decent amount of money saved up out there, and then after, I don't know, 6, 8 months, I just didn't have anything left because I didn't have any luck finding jobs. It was, again, very humbling experience because I went into that market very confident, like, "Oh, I'm gonna find a cool tech job at a startup. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna be making all this money. Life's gonna be good in a cool city." And it didn't pan out that way. And so I was ready to move back home with you guys, and you offered, but I felt like that would be kind of a defeat in my eyes, and I wanted to do something different. And Rachel, my sister, was moving to Los Angeles at the time, and she kindly invited me to come stay with her as she built her business. And I was hesitant on that as well, just living with a family member, but it worked out. It was actually one of the best things that's ever happened to me, one of those, like, pivotal moments, life decisions, because when I came to LA, I only crashed with her maybe 30 days or so, and then found a job at a startup. I made a role for myself at a startup that I really wanted, so I kinda got that dog in me, like, I knew I wanted it, and I went for it, and I got that job. And it was a great learning experience for 3 or 4 years. And then company kind of went under, got bought out by our investors. And then I stumbled into another amazing job at BCG, Boston Consulting Group, which at the time I didn't even know what that meant. Consulting, they were looking for people who had startup experience because they were building out their digital division in Manhattan Beach, which they had this beach house. Like it was very Los Angeles beach, great vibes and super high performing people. And I happened to just get that job. I don't think I was qualified for it, but I got lucky. And I knew if I was in the environment, if I got the job, I would figure it out. They hired me as a product manager, which I really enjoyed. It's product management in tech is basically managing teams of engineers, business people, strategists, and then the clients who would work with the Fortune 500 companies and manage those teams to build products that you define, really. So every product you see on the market, someone is managing each little asset and role within that product. So that's when things got it was really good for 6 months. I got promoted really fast. I was riding the high, working a lot. We traveled pretty much every week to different client sites. But yeah, I remember specifically finishing a project. I was in, I think it was Baltimore at the time, and we finished a little bit early. And so I was just burned out and I realized I want to fly home, come see you guys. It's probably springtime, just like a nice time to be in the Pacific Northwest. So I changed my flight from LA and moved and went to Portland to see you guys. And something fell off like on that last day when we were just finished closing out the project. But like my stomach, I think it was just, I thought it was nerves at the time, but that I quickly realized was not the case. And so when I got home, fell asleep, had a great sleep the next day. You know, we're a really active family. Like that's something I learned from you guys is you work out once or twice a day. And when we're in the desert, you're hiking 5 miles every day. You're doing more than I am. And dad's the same way. And so I always like movement. It's good. It's good for your body. It's good for the soul. And so I went for a run the next day, just like a mile. And I felt so lethargic. Like I could barely make it the mile. I thought I was going to pass out. And that's never happened to me before. And then I noticed some strange symptoms, which I won't really get into because it's a little graphic for this, but stomach things that I knew was problematic. And so I told you about it and you said just watch over. I think dad was out of town at the time, so it was just you and I at home. And it kept happening. Well, I'll just explain it. I mean, it is what it is. So you bleed internally, you go to the bathroom and black comes out of you basically. And I knew this because I had an ulcer when I was younger from playing lacrosse. My doctor told me to take Advil every day, 3 Advil twice a day, and then never told me to stop. And so, I mean, I didn't know anything. We didn't know anything about, we didn't have social media or anything. So I just listened to the doctor because I had an injury and that was how we resolved it. And then I ended up developing an ulcer in my stomach from that. And I remember just the excruciating pain and also noticing what was coming out of my body. And that's when I learned that's what internal bleeding looks like. Those are the signs. This one was different because it was almost like a faucet. Like if it felt like it wasn't stopping. And I got really scared and nervous about that because I could see the tone, the color tone in my face was getting whiter and whiter and whiter. And so I just pretty calmly, I told you, I think, hey, we should go to the hospital. Something's not right. I did call a doctor at the time. He's like, yeah, it's usually not something you want to think twice about. So we went to the hospital. They ran some tests, some labs, and they knew something was wrong, but they didn't run the right tests on me, which looking back, like very frustrating. A lot of people go through similar experiences where you're misdiagnosed or they don't catch something right away. And so they sent us home, and they just said to watch yourself, see if it gets better. If not, come back. It just got worse and worse. And I started developing this awful headache that was worse than anything I've ever felt in my life, worse than any hangover, any concussion, anything like that. And my face kept getting whiter and whiter, and I could tell the bleeding was not stopping. So I think it was like midnight or something, and
It
it
was 2 in the morning.
was 2 in the morning.
I'll
Well, you were
never forget it.
yeah,
Yeah.
God. for a mom. That's hard. But yeah, so we went back and
Let's explain what happened, David. I didn't know I was asleep, and you were sitting in the kitchen on a bar stool, and you fainted. You fell off.
this was before.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait, no, you are wait.
That was at 2 in the morning. That's when we took you. I took you at 2 in the morning, and you're
I thought that
screaming.
was I thought that was after I got the blood transfusion. No?
Mm-mm. No, it wasn't. This I remember really well.
Yeah.
And you were screaming my name in the middle of the night, and as a mom, you just it's so interesting what happens. You're on. You're like a protective lioness protecting their cub. Went downstairs, got you in the car, took you to the hospital, to the emergency room. And what's interesting, I'm just gonna share that I
Yeah.
didn't panic. It was just, "I'm gonna get my son taken care of." And it was
No,
just
you
you and
handle it
him.
really well. You kept calm, and that helped me stay calm as well. Um, which shows your true colors too when you're faced in those situations, how you react in those moments. Um, but I do remember coming home, and I remember they had the big cup they give you from the hospital with all the
Mhm.
ice, and I was filling it up, and it was so hard to even move, and so I remember just, like, walking from the couch because I couldn't go upstairs to lay down. I was sleeping on the couch, just going from the couch to the water machine, and then I couldn't even make it back to the couch. I was sitting on that stool, and that's when, like you said, I fainted, and I woke up, waters everywhere. I didn't know what happened. I'd never fainted before in my life,
Mhm.
and, yeah, I started screaming for you because I literally my body could not move. It's actually really one of the most terrifying experiences in my life. I feel like I'm reliving it right now, so I
Oh,
don't think about that often now, but, yeah, it was really when your body just gives out on you and you don't you need help. You need someone to help you, and thank God I was in Oregon. Like, we talked about this, that I was in Oregon when this happened. Because if I was in LA, I mean, I have friends that could help, but I probably wouldn't have asked out of shame or just nerves, or I don't know what would have happened, but all happens for a reason. But so you took me back to the hospital, and I remember seeing the nurse's face, I'll never forget, where she ran some tests, and she was like, "Oh my god, we need to get you blood transfusions right now." And I was so frustrated that they didn't do it before and let it get to that point. But, so they admitted me, and I remember, God, it was brutal. So in one arm, I had the IVs of blood being transfused, which I've never had a blood transfusion before. I don't think people do. It's not the best feeling that you're taking in someone's blood. It's just kind of unnerving, but thank God people do give blood because for those types of situations. So I had that going in one arm, and I had an IV of fluids in the other arm, and at the same time, they're prepping me for a colonoscopy and an endoscopy to figure
and
out what the
can you share
bleeding
how
point.
old you are at that time?
20, so I'm 37. I think I was 28, maybe.
Yes, so to have a
Yeah.
colonoscopy at 28 is really young.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just kind of became part of my future and story after that. But, yeah, and I was too prideful, like, I didn't want a nurse to help me go to the bathroom because if anyone's prepped for a colonoscopy, you're just coming out both ends. It's a lot. And so they did that, and then they went in and well, they told me I had lost 70% of the blood in my body, which was terrifying because I think I needed 8 pints of blood while I was there, and I can't remember if we went back and got more, but yeah, so they did the colonoscopy, endoscopy, and they said they found where the bleed is. It was in my ileocecal valve, which is lower intestines, and they sealed it up, cauterized it, and kept giving me blood until they felt I was stable, and then sent me home with you and said, "Just keep an eye on it, get a GI specialist, and you have Crohn's disease. So you're that the rest of your life, and you can manage it. Many people have it and manage it." So that was a lot to take in, and I was still not 100% because I wasn't getting blood flowing and oxygen to my brain properly because I had lost so much blood, and so that's one of the side effects of it is not only does your skin go super pale because you don't have enough blood oxygenating in your body, but you're without oxygen in your brain, things just don't fire properly. And so I didn't feel normal for at least 8 weeks after that. It started to get better within 2 weeks, but that headache persisted for,
Mm.
God, like a week, because it takes time when you receive a blood transfusion. It's not like you flip on a switch and everything's good. Your body has to process it, and a lot of the blood actually gets wasted in your body just because it doesn't accept it or many factors. So,
I want to interject one thing here,
yeah,
David, because I am forever, forever grateful to BCG
yeah,
because they took such good care of you and they gave you the time off and with pay, and their health insurance was the best ever. And they own a place in my heart. There's a huge corporation and they took such good care of you. So this is a shout out to BCG
big
DV.
shout out BCG, and they
Big
still support me.
I
They
know
buy
they do.
product from me. They're fantastic people. I've met some of my friends from that company. I learned so
Mhm.
much. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing with this job. I wouldn't have the confidence to build my own business without that experience, and yeah, I think, I remember working I was on my computer and I was talking to my, like, mentor there, advisor, and he was like, "Look, David, we can handle things. You just get better. Just take care of yourself." His name's Gunnar. He's a really good guy. His specialty is in medicine too. And that just felt really good. It was hard to accept because I think we have this mentality as we grow up is like you just work, work, work. You grind, 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 and then you hit certain levels and you do all the things. And so I had never taken a break since college, really. I mean, you're working in college. I was working in Vail, trying to find work in San Francisco, got my job in LA, and was working 24/7, basically, always on with the startup. And then you get a new job and it's the same sort of thing. So that was a really hard reality. And I've talked to a lot of people as well, also from BCG, but just friends in general that have a hard time pausing. Like if they take a sabbatical or if a medical thing arises, it's really hard for people in society to just pause. And it's such an interesting thing. It's like a new skill you have to learn how to do that. But yeah, they took care of me. I didn't have to worry about my salary during that time, and like you said, my health insurance was probably the best you can get country. So we had probably racked up $1 million in medical bills and didn't have to pay a thing, which is just amazing. Yeah, big shout out BCG.
Can
So
I ask you something
yeah,
else, David? During that time, because I'm reliving it with you, and I just did my thing as a mom. You did your thing, just whatever that was. I never saw in you like real, like being terrified or fear, although you were, and I'm sure you were internalizing that because you said you were terrified. What was going through you fear wise? What were your thoughts about what was going on? Because we've never had that conversation, which is surprising.
it's a good question for Fear Unzipped, I would say. Right there.
Thank you so much, son of mine.
No, it's a good question. I think that's another thing within our society is, especially for men too, we typically internalize things that we don't wanna show vulnerabilities, and I think from my childhood, I kind of was forced to harden myself, the layers outside, because I didn't wanna be that sensitive kid all the time because it was just hard to live that way, and so I had to create these barriers, like these walls that you put up. And so maybe I was still doing that to some extent of like, I'm a man, I want to be able to get through this. Don't show pain, don't cry. So, but yeah, internally I was a mess, especially when
Mhm.
I fainted. Like I knew something. There were times where I thought I might actually die from that experience. And I had never felt that before. And it's really it's traumatizing for sure, like, that was actually a traumatizing, especially, being in the hospital where you feel useless, and I'm still thinking about work, like, am I gonna get fired? I'm thinking about relationships with girls, like, how am I gonna be able to date? And I've got IVs in me, I'm like, am I gonna be sick for the rest of my life? So I think all of those feeling anyone who's dealt with chronic illness can relate to those feelings because it's scary. It's a complete identity change. It's a complete identity change. And I think anytime as humans delving into the unknown, it's scary. But through these experiences where you overcome adversity, overcome fears, overcome your suffering, that is where the good stuff comes from. There's always a silver lining. And that's, I think, the stories, the people you talk to, a lot of them have experienced that silver lining. And I think in this world now, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but people, there's a lot of comforts. We can be as comfortable as we want. You can be at home, you can work from home, you can have Postmates deliver you food. You don't even have to go out and talk to people anymore. And I think it's a really sad way to live. We need to go out, go adventure, go explore, go seek the unknown, because in those times where you're uncertain, you don't know what's going to happen, things don't go as planned, you really get to see how you react and who you are as a human being in this world. Because without suffering, without going through difficult experiences, you're never going to learn anything. So,
So
yeah.
there's a couple of things. One, it's so fascinating to me, David, because you're one of the bravest people that I know, and you are such a terrified little child, like I was. I you probably got that from me genetically, but I was a terrified little girl and lived that way through a lot of my life and was a good actor, just putting
Yeah.
on the face. And here you are today. I just am I'm amazed at who you were as a little kid, and sweet, kind, wonderful little kid. And you're this brave, adventurous man with tenacity and fortitude, and it speaks a lot. And the unknown is interesting because the brain fears the unknown more than anything. That's why we do the same things over and over, because they are comforting. But the magic, the true magic happens in the unknown. I mean, even doing this podcast, I was terrified, absolutely terrified to do it. I don't understand, a lot of it. And you
No one
encouraged
does.
me. Yeah,
People
you
are,
encourage,
yeah.
and nobody really knows what they're doing anyway. But you encouraged me so much. So I just wanted to say you went from a really terrified small child into and forced into a situation where you were a healthy kid. I mean,
Yeah.
running, jumping, biking, doing snowboarding, doing all the things, to a 180-degree turn. So you could go any avenue that you wanted. You could go, "Woe is me, and suffer through it," or find answers. So let's start going into where you start finding some answers to this.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks, mom. That's very, very nice of you to say. I feel the same way about. I mean, you've done a similar thing. You were a scared kid, and then you owned a PR agency, for a very successful PR agency, for many years. You worked with Michael Jackson. I got to meet Will Vinton and have these really cool creative experiences as a kid, which inspired me to be get into my art, which I may get into a bit down the road. And now you're you've built a podcast at your age. Like, it's amazing. I tell people about it. Everyone's always very impressed. So
Well, thank you, David. Boy, this is like, if nothing else, this is great for me. Thank you.
you gotta give people their credit
Yeah.
when it's due,
Mm.
especially your mom. So
Oh,
people out there, tell your mom she's important. You love her. Okay, so we were gonna get into the next chapter of that. So it took me about 2 months to stabilize, for the bleeding to stop. I was going in to get labs every day. I met a GI specialist in Portland, and they just weren't good. It was like my first introduction to the medical system, and I just felt like he didn't get it. He was trying to get through our meeting as quick as possible, and it just didn't feel warm and welcoming. And so I didn't really take what he said as truth or valid or anything, because I was Googling, and stuff he was saying didn't really make sense as I cross reference. And that was the first time where I started to, like, think for myself as a patient, because that's something we can get into too. And dad always talks about, you really have to be an advocate for your health, especially when you're going through something new. And it's really hard. It takes a lot of work. It's a full-time job. But if you want to overcome something, you really have to put in the work and flip your mindset that you're going to be stuck in this forever. And also question, like, doctors are great for certain things, but, they like this situation. They said I'd be on medication forever. I've been off for like 7, 8 years now without any hospital visits. So just want to share that with people who are listening is I'm not saying don't go to doctors. They are very important and they serve a purpose in this world, but try to think outside the box and trust your intuition is the biggest thing. It's hard to do that when you want to trust someone who has all the accolades and the certificates and the schooling. But if your gut is telling you something different, just question. And it's don't be afraid to ask questions to your doctors. So came back to LA, got an introduction to a really great GI specialist out here. He's supposed to be the top of the top over at Cedars. And yeah, so they did the same thing, colonoscopy, endoscopy. They've got to figure it out for themselves too and just see what's going on. And he said the same thing, going to be on medication for the rest of your life, but you're going to live a long, happy, healthy life and it's going to be fine. And to me, I'm just thinking, I was always asking, well, can I get off medication? Will I be able to? He's like, no, no, you need this to survive basically and to be stable. And so when you get Crohn's disease or any sort of chronic condition, they start with what he would call the less heavy artillery. So stuff that's not immunocompromising, the stuff that's easier on your body, because most of these drugs just wreak havoc on your body in different ways. So we started with that, and you just have to be so patient because it's certain drugs take a month, 2 months, sometimes even 6 months to reach the levels they need to be in your body to see if there's any efficacy to it. And so I'm trying to move faster, like get off medication, do this. And so we just had to keep trying things and nothing worked. And then it was like clockwork every 3 or 4 months when a project would end at BCG after traveling a lot and I'd be fine. And then it was like my body would just give out. It was like you push, you push, you push. You were at the red line, driving your car, pushing it to the limits. And then your body just says, nope, I'm done. And then I get this excruciating pain because Crohn's is a chronic inflammation of your intestines. And so your intestinal tract constricts. So nothing can move through your body. And it's one of the most excruciating pains I've gone through aside from the headache, but it's really tough. And mentally, when you're in that much pain, you go to a different place. You're not fully in your body because you can't be. You'll pass out. And so going through I remember one in particular, I had just flown back from New York on a trip. God, this one was brutal, where I was there, finished the week. It was a really tough 2 weeks when I was there. I had a lot of responsibility, and I came back or that morning, I remember I started to get that tugging on my stomach that I was familiar with it at this point, and I was like, "Oh, man, I'm gonna have a flare up." I didn't have any steroids with me. They give you prednisone, and, that usually helps a bit. And then I was like, "Well, do I go to a hospital here and potentially get stuck?" And I remember just hospitals in New York are pretty tough, and it takes a long time to get through, and so I just thought, "You know what? I wanna get home, I wanna be in my bed, I'm gonna do it." And so, again, I'm out of my body at this point because the pain's so excruciating. Get the Uber, go to the airport, and I'm just almost, like, healed over in pain everywhere, barely able to move, got my bag with me. Get seated. Fortunately, we flew first class for these jobs, so I had the lay flat seat. That's the only reason I stayed actually, because I knew on the plane I would be able to lay down and just kind of go in fetal position. And I was just nervous on that flight because I didn't know if something else was wrong, if an appendix was going to burst, because the pain was so excruciating. I had no pain meds, no steroids. It was just you just have to grit your teeth through it and just go. And, I survived it. I got through, took a Uber back to my house, showered. I know the routine, so I figure out what to put in my go bag to go to the hospital because I've been through this so many times. So got another Uber, took it to the hospital. And so this is after like 10, 12 hours of traveling from like 10 a.m. and now it's probably 10 p.m. And I couldn't get into the hospital because I think it was a Friday night or something. So it's busy in LA. And so they wouldn't give me any pain meds or anything because you have to get admitted for them to legally give you that stuff. So I remember, and it's when you're waiting to go to the hospital, it's kind of gross. Everyone's sick and going through different things, and it's just not an uplifting environment. So I would go outside and it was kind of cool at night. I would just lay on the cement under a bus bench. And it was the only thing where I could feel a little bit of reprieve from the pain. And I was like falling asleep off and on. Then I'd go in and check in, couldn't get me in. I called my doctor, he couldn't get me in. Then finally they got me in probably 4 or 5 hours later. And they inject you with steroids and inflammation goes down pretty quick and they send you home. So it's it's safe to say, like, the whole experience of having Crohn's and going through it the way I did, and people have more difficult times with that disease than I did, but it's those times were just really, really tough, and I knew that I didn't wanna do that forever. I didn't wanna constantly be in this cycle, and so I think that was a culminating point for me where I realized, 1, I'm not sure if this job is sustainable because every 3 or 4 months, like clockwork, I was back in the hospital, and I knew it was related to projects and stress. And then 2, I wanted to do something different. I didn't know if I it was because it was the best job, the pinnacle of jobs in tech, and I wasn't gonna find something better than that, I felt. So I was trying to figure out what my next thing would be, but that seed was planted. And then this was probably like a year, year and a half after being diagnosed. And then I started looking, I felt like I had tried all the things, the heavy artillery, as my doctor would I had immunosuppressant drugs. I had a girl who would come over and give me IV infusions once every 2 months. They would bill my insurance $80,000, which was paid. And that was also where I'm starting to learn that maybe there's something that doesn't quite connect with why are they charging this much for medicine? My insurance is paying for it. And my doctor's always trying to get me on like new, interesting, exciting drugs. And I just felt like something was off. Like, is someone getting a kickback here? Who's getting paid? And kind of ironically, at the same time, I was working with big pharmaceutical, Fortune 500 pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies. I was on a specific project. I can't divulge the information or who, but it was in the medical field. And so what we do at BCG is we would learn the patient's journey from start to finish and then who's affected along the way. So there's the patient, there's the practitioner, there's insurance, and then other people along the route. And you hear what the incentives are of each of these people. For the patient, I want to get better as quick as possible and spend the least amount of money. Insurance people, I want to move through these patients as quick as possible and spend the least amount of money, which is basically the same thing. And then doctors is usually, I want to move through this patient as quick as possible so I can make more money by bringing more patients through my door. Not all doctors are this way, but the way most offices are structured, that's why you always feel like you're getting pulled out or they're pushing you out within 10, 15 minutes and you don't have enough time to actually share what's on your mind. And I feel like doctors should be they're kind of therapists in a way because you don't really have anyone else to talk to who understands what you're going through. And so it's you always feel like you're not getting enough information or you haven't fully fulfilled or you need more out of that person when you leave. And that's why I love naturopaths. If you find a great naturopath, it'll take their time with you. You could sit in the office for an hour and they go through all these different labs and they make you feel like a person as opposed to another cog in the wheel of patients. So I tell that story because I, s- I see, as I'm working with these companies, I see all these other patients who are going through similar things, not necessarily in Crohn's, but there's a broken system involved, and I'm in the middle of this broken system. And seeing enough of these patients, we would interview them and a lot of just sad stories. And I just thought, I don't want to be that. I cannot be that when I'm older. I have to overcome this. And I don't know if there was like a defining moment for having that light bulb effect, but I got that dog in me again. I needed to figure it out. And so I started learning researching, Googling about the food system online and realizing pesticides are ridden through our food since food was industrialized in the mid 1900s. Seed oils have become a big part of our diet since then, and we've seen a direct correlation with pesticides, seed oils, and chronic conditions, like basically going in a parallel pattern upwards. And like I didn't know anyone with Crohn's or stomach conditions or colitis or anything growing up. And so I realized, okay, this sounds like a food problem. This sounds like something I can probably resolve. And I also knew I was kind of on my own for this when I remember specifically asking my doctor. It was one of the first times we met, and I asked him, "Do you think this is a food thing? Like, if I change my diet, is that going to change this?" He said, "No, Dave. You've been eating the same way your entire life. It's just keep eating that. You're going to be fine. You just need medication." And that to me, because I had read in all the blogs and forums, like food is a very important plays an important role in your digestive health, your overall health, and specifically in chronic conditions like this. So, in part of my research, I was looking for anti-inflammatory foods, and olive oil kept coming up in the search. It was like, olive oil? That's interesting. I use olive oil all the time, but I've never thought of it as like a superfood. And there's actually a lot of really great studies that have been published. So there's real data. It's not some fake stuff that's been out there, just people talking about olive oil. There's like really good studies because it's a biblical food. It's been around for a long time. And there's a thing in there, component of olive oil called polyphenols, which are like super antioxidants for your body. And they help fight inflammation, they help with gut support, liver health, with your digestive enzymes, with brain health. There's an amazing study about prevention of Alzheimer's and dementia by like 25% or something. Don't quote me on that, but by consuming a couple tablespoons of high quality extra virgin olive oil daily, you have a less likelihood of getting those brain conditions. So I started just drinking olive oil. I reached out to all the farms, organic farms in the US I can find. Most of them are in California. I was asking which had the highest polyphenols. They sent me labs and they sent me samples. And so I started just drinking olive oil a lot. And I was getting labs done pretty much every week. And so I tested this. I didn't change anything else in my body. And after 4 weeks of doing this, I noticed a significant reduction in my inflammatory markers, which never happened for me. It was only if I got an IV of steroids being in the hospital when I was flared up, or that was kinda it. It was like my baseline was way elevated always. And so that was the aha moment, maybe the next one where I realized I might be able to get out of this. I and I started to feel hope for the first time in a long time because of those labs. And so I just kept doing it. I started a meditation practice, which takes some time to figure out. It's so cold. I mean, we've talked about meditation a lot, and it's one of the all these things you have to do are it takes work, it takes dedication, and it takes consistency. And so there's no such thing as, getting rich quick or healing your body overnight. Like people saying this stuff on Instagram are just blatantly lying to you. Anything good that comes in your life will take time to get there.
Can
And
I s
so
add something to that,
yeah,
David? Trust to me is such an and I've said it many times on here, but trust is so important that you're listening to your intuition and your gut. I mean, literally your gut.
yeah,
And but you're trusting. And without the trust, you can go wonky. You can go, oh, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. But you stuck with that. And that's something that I'm really impressed with. And I just say that word over and over in this podcast, trust. Just if you're getting, and this is the other thing I want to ask you, did you feel like you were getting any intuitive help from elsewhere? Um, and we didn't really talk like that in the past because it
yeah,
was I'd start saying something, you go, "No, no, mom, not no, no, no."
yeah.
And now we talk, much differently. But can you look back and go, "Huh, maybe I was getting some guidance somewhere?" And if you weren't, that's totally fine. I just am wondering if something outside of you was channeling into you.
Yeah, I mean, I look back and there were moments of like little nudges throughout my time at BCG that were I felt like it was trying to push me to a different path because I'm a musician. I do hip hop music and spoken word poetry. And that's always been like a big passion of mine. I am an artist at heart and a creative. And I felt like I wasn't, BCG was a really good job and it was on paper an amazing thing. The salary was fantastic, the people were amazing, but it wasn't what I was put on this planet to do, and I knew that intuitively, but I was scared to do anything different because, again, of the expectations going into the world, get a good job, raise a family, these things. And I think I got some of these smaller nudges, but God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, gave me a really big nudge, which was
Mm.
internal bleeding and the diagnosis. And it's like, if you're not going to move off this path, I'm going to do it for you. And I even had a hard time even saying the word God for a while because I'm not religious. I mean, we were raised Jewish, had the bar mitzvah, but I never really related to the religion, the synagogue, the church
Mhm.
aspect of it. I like finding my own belief system through that. And then that kind of led me down a path of, for lack of a better term, spirituality, which I know we talked about it. Not a big fan of that word, but believing in something bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
And then I started learning about like reading the Bible, reading different biblical books, and you realize they're all kind of saying the same thing, but in a slightly different way. And so it's like all of these different religions have a different marketing department. Some are pushing fear, some are pushing enlightenment, some are pushing whatever, the different things at different times in different regions too. And so that to me was like, okay, well, everything's kind of the same. They're all saying the same thing coming from different places. So there's definitely something bigger than me. And that's when I started my meditation practice. I think you were doing it way before I was. And I would
Mhm.
ask you questions about it because it was really hard for me to sit down and just be present. And when you first start to meditate, you don't know if you're doing it right. So you're questioning, should I move? Should I lay down? Am I supposed to think these things? But it just takes time to really refine that, and at some point, it just started working for me, and I felt my cortisol levels were dropping. I could find inner peace a lot easier when I was working in a very stressful environment. And so I think that balance of knowing how to reduce your cortisol levels and not take everything so seriously was really important for my growth and just like letting go of that tightness inside. Um, so I don't know if there was, like, one direct intuitive
Mhm.
hit I got from the olive. I knew it was working. I think we talked about this a lot too, is mixing the science with the spiritual side or the greater, the universe, the quantum. It's really helpful to see scientific evidence work, and me seeing those lab results actually work from one variable change that I made gave me a lot of hope that, okay, maybe I can do this on my own. And I didn't know at that time I was going to start an olive oil brand, but I knew I was pretty confident that I was going to heal myself at that point. So,
That's where the trust comes in. And
yeah.
then when you started your brand, you had it for a while and then you rebranded it and you started originally it wasn't you weren't really a part of it. You weren't really telling your story. And then you rebranded and you got some sort of inkling or some sort of messaging that you were important to the brand and to share your story. And things shifted then also for you.
Yeah, I would say so I gave myself about 2 years of doing research and development with my good buddy Will Blana, who's still with me today. He has his full-time job and his family, but he's this branding is all thanks to
Shout
Will.
out Will.
This design is from my friend Carson. He did the illustrations on this. But we developed it for about 2 years because I wanted to do it. I didn't wanna just jump ship. I was like, "Let's do this smart, save money for 2 years, and build this brand." And so when I was ready to launch it, gave in my 2 weeks and launched it under a different name because exactly like you said, I wasn't comfortable sharing my story with the world. I didn't wanna be that vulnerable. I wasn't really even talking about it with people in the office because out of shame or I don't know what it is, but yeah, probably a good deal of shame because you feel like less of a person when you have a chronic condition. You don't feel like you're worthy at times. And so like dating was really hard at that time because I didn't have the confidence to be out there, even though like life was good, good job. I didn't have that confidence in myself and my body. And so launching this brand was really, I had to jump ship and just go for it. And I remember I'll get back to that other point you mentioned, but when I was leaving, thinking about it, you and dad and Rachel were not super supportive of it. I mean, I was gonna do what I was gonna do, but I think your guys' concerns were yours was probably the health insurance. I think dad's was
100%
more, "You have a
health
great job,
insurance.
great salary, you're doing great. Why would you leave that?" And I think Rachel was a combination of both. And that's where that intuitive hit comes where I
Mhm.
reached a point where I just knew I had to do it. And once I got out and started doing it, you guys became much more supportive, and I think you're probably Zim's biggest fan
I'm
now.
definitely Sim's biggest fan. My concern was health insurance, David. It was
No.
very human. You needed health insurance, and that's what I was worried about because my thing is follow your passion. You guys know that's what mom always says. In this instance, I wanted you to have health insurance.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad here you have, and this happens to a lot of people, David, where they want to do something, but their family members or their friends are saying, no, you can't do that because if you do that, you're going to lose this great paying job. You're going to lose this, that. It takes enormous strength and bravery to leave when the people you care about are giving you other advice. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. I mean, really, to anybody who listens to their gut.
Yeah, I tell anyone, regardless of what job you're doing, if you go out there on your own and do something as an entrepreneur or even releasing a video online that you were uncomfortable with, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I respect anyone who's started an idea and finished it. Whatever that
Yep.
finishing means, it's very admirable.
Mm.
So thank you for saying that. Um, Going back to the brand, so I launched it under a different name because I wasn't comfortable sharing my story. And the brand did pretty well. We grew to like 100 stores at that time, and online sales were pretty good. It was all word of mouth. I wasn't doing any advertising or anything. And yeah, I just kind of reached a point where I started working with some affiliates and influencers and um some younger people who were very courageous and they just said what was on their mind. Maybe it's a Gen Z thing, but they just didn't care and they said what they're going through and they're very open and vulnerable about sharing those experiences. And again, I was back home in Oregon. It was around the holidays. I was going to bed and I remember getting back to intuition. It was like a dart of information. It came in so loud and clear. It's time to change the name. You gotta put your name on the label. And even when that happened, I tried to not put my name on the label. I tried a few different names. We just wanna do a rebranding, and none of those names were legally available. And so I said, "You know what? Screw it. No one's got Zimms Organics. We're going for it." And I called Will the next day. I was like, "What do you think about a rebrand?" And he was so supportive and down and excited for a new project. And that was in like mid-December, end of December. We rebranded and launched these new bottles, painted, complete redesign. Within 3 months, we were selling this product, which is I've built dozens of companies at BCG. It never goes that fast. There's always so many issues that arise, and so the fact that it was going so smoothly,
Mm.
I knew we were on the right track, and yeah, when I put the name on it, within about a year, Erewhon brought us on, which Erewhon is like the top of grocery stores in Los Angeles where a lot of celebrities shop but their standards are really high. They take a lot of pride in making sure the products are good quality, so they'll ask for all the lab reports, soil certifications, organic certifications, everything. And I knew we needed to get an Erewhon, and I kept every 6 months, I would ask, and then all of a sudden I get an email, "You're accepted to Erewhon." And so that was one varietal, and then I had launched the green bottle, that was the heel, which we used as taking shots, and then I brought on 2 new varietals, one for cooking and one for this is the Heel Plus, which is our highest polyphenol olive oil. All is certified organic, single origin, single varietal. Work with great family farms in California. The Heel varietals come from Northern California, which have typically higher polyphenols. The Cook comes from Central California. And same thing, I kept asking, hey, applying. And then I think just this month, or last month, we got all the varietals on the shelves. We were accepted maybe 2 months ago. We're waiting for the new harvest to come in. But yeah, I mean, and we're in the Ritz-Carlton now, where there's a new fancy grocery store out here called Laurel Supply, and they
Yeah.
dedicate entire shelf space to us, which one of my friends, just a couple of my friends were there, sent pictures. I had no idea. I knew they bought olive oil, but it's just it's really
So
big growth of
David, I have to
yeah.
tell you because I didn't tell this to you, but I was with a friend of mine yesterday, Beth, and she said she was just in Silver Lake and she was in one of the stores there and it was the Air One there and your olive oil was everywhere and she meant to take a picture and she didn't. So it's really
Uh,
fun that other people are looking out for you. The other
yeah.
thing, I mean, I believe in it. So I only support things that I wholeheartedly believe in. You know how I am about products and if I love it, I will embrace it. If I don't talk about it. The other thing that I love, and I do take these shots every day, the thing that I do love about your brand also is the consciousness behind it because your bottle, the paint is organic, the packaging is not wasteful. I mean, that's something that's really important to me as well.
Yeah, and that was it's harder to do that stuff, I think, later on if you're rebranding or trying to change the packaging. I think most people probably cheapen the brand as they get bigger. We've
Mm.
kind of done the opposite, but from the foundation, from the start, I knew sustainability had to be at the forefront of it because so it took a lot more time finding all the organic farms, having the certifications, finding partially recycled glass, finding a painter locally that could do organic ink at the levels we needed. And doing things sustainably is typically harder and more expensive, but I think it's important for us if you're starting a business or whatever you're doing to try to do the best that you can to support our environment, our world. And maybe that comes from my upbringing in Oregon, being surrounded by such beautiful nature, and Colorado's the same way. It was to me that was a non-negotiable. Like I wasn't gonna build a brand that wasn't sustainable to some extent.
Well, you didn't. I mean, as a mom, I'm in awe. I'm just blown away by it. And I look at this child who could not get out of the car. When you're in kindergarten, you couldn't get out of the car to go to a birthday party. You were terrified. I mean, you were me. And here you are like traveling the world and you have this brand and it's such a metamorphosis and it's a beautiful thing. And you have such a good heart and a good soul. If you weren't my son, you'd be my friend, and no, that's a big compliment. I think that's a big compliment.
Feel the same way.
Really?
I do.
And I'm sorry, I go ahead.
No, I feel the same way.
Um,
I love our conversation. I
yeah.
appreciate it. I am honored to be on Fear Unzipped today. This is
Well, I didn't want people to think I'm bringing you on to promote a brand. It's really your story I think is so important for the world to hear. And also, you created this brand that has made a huge difference. Plus, you've been getting a lot of testimonials from people saying that have autoimmune or IBS or certain things, and they said this has been a game changer. What what is something that really stands out to you in this whole process where you were so fearful? What was it? Or maybe you can't answer that, that just made you power through?
it's I always tell people you gotta find hope in the dark times. You gotta find the light in the darkness. It's okay to feel down on yourself for a little bit. I think dad would say this where if you're feeling upset or you go through a breakup or inevitably something bad in your life happens, go through the motions for 24 hours, 48 hours, and then move on. Obviously, there's going to be remnants of those issues and things are going to come up, especially with heartbreak and things, but start moving forward. You can't get lost in that spiral because the deeper you go in that spiral, the harder it is to get out. And I think just keeping that light of hope constantly. And I had to find it within myself a lot of times. Like I couldn't really find it elsewhere. I remember one of my doctors said, "Oh, you maybe go on the forums on Reddit or Crohn's forums and find some people so you can relate to someone." And it was such a dark place. I think I opened those forums up maybe 2 or 3 times. because no one was hopeful. Or I shouldn't say no one, very few people were hopeful. Everyone was just going through the motions and dark and it's getting worse and now I'm gonna have to do this. And I just didn't. I think you have to elevate your frequency and you have to I feel like I manifested this for myself, it's you have to really believe it before something happens. And I don't know the exact moment that it was, but I did feel like a surge of power at some point where I knew I was gonna overcome it. I didn't necessarily know how it was gonna happen, but I knew it was gonna happen. And yeah, 7, 8 years later, no hospitals, labs are normalized. I eat whatever I want. I did cut out gluten, dairy, refined sugar for 3 years, after I got off medication because I wanted to just that was more of a confidence thing. I didn't wanna, you know, mess with my body too much. And then again, I reached a point where I was like, I think I'm gonna eat bread again. Start with organic sourdough, then I'm gonna eat dairy again. And now I eat everything and I'm so
In and
happy.
out burger.
Now, yeah, every time I come to Palm Springs, I stop at the Morongo Casino In and Out, get in
It's your
my car,
joy.
watch me through. It makes me so happy.
It's your
Pizza,
joy
I
in
miss
life.
pizza and burgers. I eat those all the time and
Yeah.
good quality ingredients, everything in moderation. It's important to
Mhm.
live your life, enjoy, but also take care of yourself, exercise, work out. I think anyone watching this who's going through something that, to me, the non-negotiables of long longevity, some sort of meditation, spiritual practice could be going to church, believing in something greater than yourselves, exercise at least 3 times a week, ideally 4 or 5, and exercise could be walking, but you wanna get your heart rate up. Strength training, we're finding out, is super important for your body, and it feels really good when you do it. The stronger you are, the more muscle mass you have, the stronger your bones are in your body. Obviously, take a shot of olive oil at Zimms Organics every morning, 15 to 20 minutes before your first meal. It's it's helped so many people. We have over, like, 1,600 five-star reviews, and many of these people have overcome ailments similar to mine. Girls going through their cycles, it helps them a lot. All kinds of conditions, psoriasis, skin conditions. I
Mhm.
got someone who messaged us on the Zimms text today and said, "Hey, I just got your product. I have Crohn's too. I'm really excited to use this. Do you have any advice?" And I like to help people as much as I can, and so I texted him back. I said, "Message me on Instagram. I'll send you a voice memo," which I'm gonna do after this, or I'll just send him to this podcast, which probably won't be released for a few weeks. But yeah, I think it's important now more than ever to
Mhm.
continue the essence of what Zimms was built on, and we're really here to help people and inspire and hopefully instill some hope in people who are going through it. Because 'cause I've been there, it sucks, but you can get through it.
Yeah, you're a walking testament and you're wildly fit. I mean, it's incredible. David, we've done it. I mean, I could talk to you forever because I talk to you a lot. I have some questions that I ask
Do it.
everybody. Can I ask you? Okay.
No.
When no, right.
Have you
When
ever had
fear
someone say no to that?
no,
Well, there's a first for
but
everything, but I'll
but
do it
there
for you.
but
I
I
will
love
definitely do it.
I love the answers that people give me because 'cause they're all different. When fear starts creeping in, what is your go-to strategy to help release it?
Now I try to it depends where I am, what the situation is, but if it's something where I have a little bit of time or I don't need to resolve it right away, I will get out into nature as quick as possible and just be off the phone, disconnect, and just try to meditate or just take a walk through the woods, listen to the water moving in a creek or a river, going surfing. Everything just makes more sense out there to me. So I can decompress pretty well when I'm out there. Or I really
Right.
like the sauna and the cold plunge. The cold
Mhm.
plunge for me has been really nice because it shocks your system so much. I actually have a sauna in my place, but I go somewhere to cold plunge. And when I do that, I'll do a cold plunge when I'm feeling like anxious and nervous and overwhelmed. It just because you can't think about those things when you're in the cold because you have to just focus and be present in the moment and keep breathing. Breathing is the
That's
only thing.
That's a good one. Yeah, I do it too, you know that. What's one of the best pieces of advice you've received in life personally or professionally?
Wow. Um, I mean, that 24-hour rule that dad said is pretty good of
Mhm.
when you're going through something, feel it for 24 hours and then you got to keep going, keep moving forward. But yeah, we'll stick with that. But listen to your gut. Trust your intuition. I've stopped taking advice. I've stopped asking advice from people because you realize you're going to get a different answer from every person in every situation, and that can convolute your decision making abilities. I
Mhm.
learned as a product manager too, where I have to make executive decisions, and the more people I ask about things, the harder it is to make a definitive decision. And so, not to say I'm perfect or I know all the answers by any means, I surely don't, but listening to that intuitive voice inside you and just going with what that's saying, because it's not gonna lead you astray. Well, I don't know any time it's led me astray.
You know, David, I have to agree that the best piece of advice I got was from dad and
Shout out
my
dad,
husband.
shout out pops.
Shout out. Yeah. He wanted to have a shout out, so there you go.
Yeah,
He told me if I get upset about something, he goes, "Wait 24 hours, Sandy, before you react to it, before you send an email, before you call somebody. In 24 hours, it changes dramatically." So I think that's just words of wisdom. So thank you, Paul, for that.
yeah.
What does a successful life look like to you?
To me, it is having the freedom of time, and I have some very large goals that I want to accomplish with Zimms in particular, but I think being filled with love, having a person in my life that I love and care about, um, being able to travel on a whim, not worry about anything, and feel like I've built something that has value in the world and helps people. And then I'd say lastly, just getting back to my music and art. When I can do that and not have to worry about a business and time and finances, I think that will be it. Just being able to, like I told you when I was in Japan last year when I went kind of on a whim to go snowboarding, I felt like I was living for the first time in a long time, and I don't do that as much now because 'cause I'm building something so important to me and the world, I believe. But I think it's really easy to get lost in the sauce of what you're creating or work or life or relationships, and a lot of people aren't living that much. And so I know I'll get back to that, and I have blips of it at times when I'm going surfing or hanging out with friends and enjoying that, but for I would like a longer period of time
Mhm.
of living that way, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
learned that from you, David. Yeah, and when I had my motorcycle, I felt like that too. When I was riding a lot, yeah, that freedom, it's beautiful. Complete the
we'll
sentence.
go maybe we'll go ride a motorcycle in the future. I think
We
we
can do
will.
that. We can do that. Complete this sentence. In the past, I was, and now I am.
In the past, I was scared, and now I am brave.
Oh, yay,
Interesting.
David.
That's a
David,
good
where can people find you?
look at this camera. Hot ones. Zimms Organics on Instagram, zimmsorganics.com. If you wanna hear some music or some behind the scenes, it's dzim333 on Instagram, but yeah, that's everything. That's where I'm at, and feel free to reach out. Happy to help if I can, and, um, yeah, we should get you a discount code if anyone wants it for Fear Unzipped.
Oh, yeah, we'll do that. When we run this, we'll get a discount code. That's great. That'd be awesome. Um, David, I love you.
I will be soon.
I truly, truly love you. I appreciate you and thank you so much for being on Fear Unzipped. This was really very special for me. Proud mama here.
I love you too. It's an honor, really. I'm so proud of you and what you've built and what you're building. It's it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
really
we
cool.
got it. We got
Happy to
it.
be here. I'm sure it
We
won't
got
be
it.
the last time.
Oh, no, it won't be the last time. And I think service is just really important. because it helps us. I mean, selfishly, it helps us. Like what you created helped you, and now you can help the world. Love you. Mwah.
Love you too.
Call me.
Vega.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye. And all your everything will be in the show notes also for people to contact you. And this is where I do want to say, if people like this podcast, please subscribe to it on YouTube, on anywhere where you get your podcasts, right? I know this is what, I don't usually say, but I'm realizing it's really important to support the
to.
podcast and to keep it going. And I get the most incredible messages from people, David. I mean, really, the community that Fear Unzipped has created is so beautiful and very wise, a very wise community too, I have to say. Okay, that's official.
Our tree.
Oh, you're funny. You're sweet. So, oh, by the way, this way David and I talk when we're hanging up on the phone. I'll go, okay, bye, David. I'll go, oh, wait a minute. So, David. So I just did it again. Okay, love you, David.
All right. Love you too. Thanks, Mom. Bye.